Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. It is Monday. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Let's get to it. First, Conan O'Brien recounts the tragic final gathering for the Reiners. The search for Savannah Guthrie's mother continues. A beloved Georgia math teacher killed in a late-night prank gone wrong. Wait until you hear what his wife wants to happen. A Florida teen on a scooter intentionally struck by a bully. A Kentucky husband allegedly beats his wife to death with a wooden plank. Apparently, she was unrecognizable when he got done. We've got this day in legal history, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal, who just happens to be a substitute teacher who maybe gave something out to the kids. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. And listen, hey, if you get something, just one thing out of the show, hit that subscribe button, all right? Now, before we get started, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do a background search on anyone here in the United States. The report is literally prepared while you wait. It is emailed to you, and you can get updates, and you're going to get social media presence, emails, phone numbers, criminal history. You're going to find out somebody's married, divorced, liens, judgments. You're also going to find out, ladies and gentlemen, whether they are on one of those registries you hear so much about. You know, no big deal, unless, of course, maybe they want to hang out with your kid or maybe date you. Yeah, that's why you go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up today. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, December 9th, 2026. And first on the docket, Conan O'Brien. That's right. The comedian and late night host Conan O'Brien has finally spoken publicly about the devastating news surrounding the death of filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, which took place back in December of 2025. Now, the couple, who are 78 and 70 respectively, were found stabbed to death in their California residence the day after attending O'Brien's holiday party. Now, their daughter, Romy, discovered the bodies while their son, Nick, was arrested later that evening at a Santa Monica hotel where evidence of blood was located in the shower and on the bedding. Now, Nick Reiner, who had been living with his parents in the guest house specifically and struggled with schizophrenia and had multiple rehab stints, had a history of substance abuse and a period of homelessness, now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder. Now, he's pled not guilty back in earlier this month, and he remains held without bail, and obviously he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. Well, O'Brien described intervening at the party when a loud argument between Rob and Nick escalated. O'Brien was preventing a guest from contacting police and noted Nick's erratic behavior toward other attendees at the party. Now, in recent interviews promoting his hosting of the 2026 Academy Awards, O'Brien expressed profound shock and sadness, praising Rob Reiner's cinematic legacy and describing the couple as simply lovely people. Now, obviously, the case is ongoing, but confirms what we basically already knew. But listen, this was his friend. So for the fact that he has to think about, could he have done something differently? Was it preventable? People always second guess those type of decisions when somebody, or in this case, 2 people that they know about, were brutally stabbed to death, ladies and gentlemen. And I know people hate guns, right? I get it. But at least with a gun, it's going to be quick. Stabbings, you know, unless they go straight for the heart and the heart stops immediately, it is a painful, slow death. And it's just not, I wouldn't want to do it. It's kind of up there on the, top 10 ways of not wanting to die: stab wounds, drowning, fire, those type of things. Just 3 of the 5. Next on the docket. Yep, they're still looking for Nancy Guthrie. That's right. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Savannah Guthrie, still continues to draw national attention as police there in Tucson, Arizona pursue some fresh clues more than a month after she vanished. Now, Nancy was last seen about 2:30 a.m. on January 31st at her home there in the Catalina foothills area down by Tucson, Arizona. Investigators believe she may have been abducted from the residence. Really? You think so? Yes, she was. Absolutely. Anyway, as of today, the search has entered its now 5th week with no resolution, and the Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has confirmed that police are examining a damaged utility box near the property, and while cadaver dogs deployed earlier, they remain on standby as of right now. A body discovered near a canal in Phoenix has been ruled out as Nancy Guthrie's, and no suspects have been publicly identified, and the family has not issued any recent statements. The investigation remains active, with the police emphasizing the need for continued public vigilance. Of course, they also didn't want you to contact them because they were overwhelmed with all of their tips that we people were providing, and so have it both ways. I don't know. Listen, we'll continue to follow the story. It's a significant story. I think it's troubling that basically a woman, 84 years old, disappears from her residence and nobody seems to have any freaking clue as to where she went. I get it. It's kind of a secluded area. Maybe the motion detectors on there don't work, but you know, once you get out of that area, I have some familiarity with it. There should be traffic cameras there, unless somebody took some back way or something. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that they haven't been able to find it. Somebody associated with it, with this particular case. And on top of that, my God, somebody actually did something to not get caught, like didn't take a cell phone with them, right? We know they've probably geo-fenced the area around the house, and every cell phone in that area that wasn't at a residence, they have probably tried to track him down. So this person followed somebody's advice from Crime Talk and said, hey, if you're going to commit a crime, don't, take your phone with you. Now, obviously, we say that jokingly because everybody does, and obviously we want the bad guys to get caught. But geez, one guy does it. Maybe two. One guy for sure. Maybe two actually does it. Unbelievable. Next, this is a tragic situation and, a prank gone bad. So a respected educator at the North Hall High School in Gainesville, Georgia, lost his life in a tragic accident during a traditional senior prank, prompting an outpouring of grief and a surprising call for leniency from his family. So Jason Hughes, a math teacher, he's about 40 years old. He was also the golf coach, confronted 5 18-year-old students who arrived at his house about 11:40 p.m. to toilet paper the property as part of the school's junior-senior wars. Apparently, it's kind of a prom season tradition. As the group fled in their cars, Hughes tripped and fell into the street where he was struck by a pickup truck driven by Jaden Ryan Wallace. Now, Hughes was transported to the Northeast Georgia Medical Center where he succumbed to his injuries. And Wallace faces charges including first-degree vehicular homicide, reckless driving, criminal trespass, and littering. Got to get that littering charge in there. Anyway, the other 4 students, Elijah Tate Owens, Aiden Hux, Anna Catherine Luke, and Ariana Cruz, were charged with criminal trespass and littering. Because you got to get that littering in there. I mean, who hasn't toilet papered a house when you were in high school? Okay, everybody has. Anyway, the Hall County School District described Hughes as a loving husband, a devoted father of 2 young sons, and a passionate mentor, deeply respected by his students and colleagues. And in a compassionate response, Hughes' wife, Laura, also a geometry teacher at the school, has requested that all charges be dropped, stating that further punishment would contradict her husband's lifelong commitment to investing in young lives, and that students and Jason shared mutual affection. A memorial service will be held, and a GoFundMe has been set up, and it's already raised $131,000. I mean, listen, his wife is probably a better person than I am, right? If your spouse gets killed, you'd probably want them something bad to happen. But obviously it sounds like an accident. It was kids having fun. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Of course, as we've talked about before, isn't it reasonably foreseeable that somebody could get injured, maybe even killed in a teeping of a house? Should those parents be charged? Oh, yeah. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. A little high school fun, a little teeping of a house. Somebody dies, total accident, freak accident. Where were those parents supervising those children? Why did they let them go out that night? Did they provide the toilet paper? Did they assist? Did they know they were going there? Oh, gee, I sure hope Georgia, who just prosecuted Mr. Colin Gray. Now, I know it's a little different circumstances, so don't, beat me up too much in the comments, but you don't understand what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't stop. When they get away with the unique legal theories, they don't stop. They keep coming, and they can come for you. Remember that. Next, another sad story. A Florida teen on a scooter is intentionally run down by a bully. So police in Orlando, Florida have upgraded charges against a classmate accused of deliberately running over a 16-year-old boy on a scooter in what family members describe as the culmination of relentless bullying. Mikhail Cuba was struck on November 20th, 2025 on a narrow residential street by a vehicle driven by Elijah Emmons. Initial reports treated the incident as a hit and run and vehicular manslaughter. But surveillance video led the Orange County Sheriff's Office to file first-degree murder charges after determining the act was completely intentional. So Cuba had transferred to homeschooling due to severe harassment by Emmons and the associates at school that he hung out with, his friends, I guess. Anyway, Emmons, now in juvenile detention, awaits further proceedings, and Cuba's grandmother, Ecstasy Moody, expressed profound anger, describing the perpetrators as cowards who attacked from behind and labeling Emmons a real sick individual. She vowed to attend every court session, and the family endured additional tragedy when Cuba's mother died of an accidental overdose in the months following his death. Police continue to investigate fully. Running somebody down from behind, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a pretty picture. I did a post-conviction case years and years ago where a couple of youths of America that were charged as an adult were literally driving around, and they thought it would be funny to basically say, 2 points if you leave their shoes in place, whereupon they ran over 2 individuals on the street, killing them, obviously, instantly. It's not a pleasant way to go. Not at all. And obviously, being bullied is not necessarily a defense, certainly mitigation, but not a defense. Remember, mitigation is something that may sway the prosecutor or the judge ultimately to a reduced charge or reduced sentence, but it's not a defense. Unless, of course, you could say, I was in immediate fear of harm, so therefore I had to run him over on a scooter. That'd be a tough sell, a real tough sell. Next, a man beats his wife to the point where she is completely unrecognizable. So a man in Mount Washington, Kentucky faces serious charges after police allege he fatally assaulted his wife with a wooden plank in a brutal attack that left her body severely disfigured. Now, Richard Chesler, who's 67, was arrested following a 911 call when police found him covered in blood at the entrance to his garage. Bonnie Chesler's body lay nearby, wrapped in a garden hose that appeared to have been used to drag her from the house. A blood trail led investigators inside, where they recovered the blood-soaked plank believed to be the weapon of choice. Chesler allegedly attempted to load the body into his truck before the police arrived. He has been charged with domestic violence, murder, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse. A judge set the bond at $1 million and entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. His next court appearance is now set for March 17th. Neighbors expressed shock at the incident, noting no prior visible signs of any trouble in the marriage at all. And the case is still under active investigation. And, well, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence. But when you beat your wife to the point where she is unrecognizable with a plank, apparently the marriage wasn't as, nice as the neighbors may have thought it to have been. That's pretty freaking personal, wouldn't you agree? Yes, it is. That is personal. That's like stabbing somebody. That's like choking somebody and killing them. Like, that kind of personal. There's some rage there, ladies and gentlemen. Serious rage. Next, a mother accused of shooting a 9-year-old daughter during a cross-country road trip. You can't make this stuff up. So remember Ashlee Buzzard, the 40-year-old woman from Vanderburg Village near Lompoc, California? Well, she failed to appear at a scheduled court hearing for the second consecutive time, citing illness. And she faces first-degree murder charges in the death of her 9-year-old daughter, Melodee. Prosecutors allege that Buzzard shot the child multiple times in the head during a 3-day road trip back in October of 2025 that extended as far east as Nebraska. Now, Melodee's body was discovered in early December in a rural area in Wayne County, Utah. Investigators noted that Buzzard and her daughter wore wigs and that the mother swapped the license plate on the rental car at least once before returning back to California on October 10th. Now, Buzzard has pled not guilty and remains held without bail at the Santa Barbara County Northern Branch Jail. Now, the judge warned that an extraction order may be issued if she misses the March 18th preliminary hearing. Now, that's referred to as a drag order, okay? When clients refuse to come to jail, which sometimes they do, and sometimes it's legitimate, and sometimes they're like, I'm not going. What are you going to do? Drag me to court? The judge says, I issue a drag order. And so they send over basically like the emergency response team. I think they call them the ERT team here, at least in Denver. It's kind of like a SWAT team where their job is to extract people from the cells and take them to court and make them stand there in court. So you can't ignore the consequences if you just don't show up. Drag her to court, I say, judge. Drag her ass to court. Now, a gag order restricts further public details from the sheriff's office. And obviously, we'll give the presumption of innocence. Next, this day in legal history. March 9th, 1841, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the Amistad slave ship mutiny case, determining with only one dissent that enslaved African Americans who had seized control of the vessel had been illegally forced into slavery and were therefore free under American law. Hip, hip, hooray! On March 9th, 1937, President Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered a fireside chat to the nation defending his controversial court-packing plan, which sought to reorganize the Supreme Court by adding justices, a pivotal constitutional moment amid the New Deal challenges. Now, what does this sound like? Let's see. FDR doesn't like the way the Supreme Court is ruling against him. So he says, I want to act like some third world dictator despot and say, fine, if I can't have the Supreme Court rule the way I want because the law's not on my side, I will stack the Supreme Court with the justices, enough justices to do that. But what did the cowardly Supreme Court do at the time? They said, well, sure, well, I guess we can probably get a few of these things through because we got to maintain the integrity of the court. Although I would think the maintaining of the integrity of the court would have been to say, no, the law is unconstitutional and you can't pass this bill. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. But instead they crumbled. Crumbled they did. Anyway, one of the, other 500 reasons why Franklin Delano Roosevelt is one of the worst presidents ever in the United States. Next, March 9th, 1964, the United States Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision in New York Times v. Sullivan establishing that actual malice standard that protects newspapers and the press from defamation suits by public officials unless statements were made with knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard for the truth. That's right. You would think you'd be able to say just about anything you want, except if you know it's not true, or reckless disregard for the truth, which is you tried to ignore it. That's why, people get sued. You can't go run around saying that people are terrible people and do terrible things to, children or to women. And it's not true. And that's why you get your ass sued. You can't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Next, how about a legal quote of the day about lying prosecutors? Okay, dirty, rotten, scoundrel prosecutors, and they do exist. Most of them are pretty good, okay? But this one came to mind because I have a situation where the prosecutor's like, oh, that wasn't what we discussed. I'm like, that's funny because I have a confirming email about it right here within seconds of the phone call ending. And they're like, oh, that's not what I remember. Well, contemporaneous writing can be used to refresh one's memory, and it's admissible in court, I might add, particularly if you have to enforce a plea agreement because of that. Anyway, a significant legal quote regarding lying prosecutors from Justice George Sutherland in Berger versus the United States. Quote, it is as much his duty to refrain from improper methods calculated to produce a wrongful conviction as it is to use every legitimate means to bring about a just one. End quote. Now, this principle is often invoked in discussions of prosecutorial misconduct, emphasizing the ethical obligation to avoid foul tactics, such as presenting false testimony or engaging in deception. Or faded memory. That's not what I remember. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after 31 years of the practice of law, you think I figured something out, right? If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Well, guess what? It was. Next, our dumb criminal of the day. Wait until you hear what this substitute teacher did. In what has to be one of the most ill-advised birthday parties since someone thought piñatas filled with homework was a good idea, substitute teacher Felicia Boyd apparently mistook an after-school program at Sierra Elementary School in Lancaster, California, for a very different kind of celebration. The 59-year-old substitute stands accused of handing out exotic dragon flute-flavored nano gummies, each packed with a robust 20 milligrams of THC, to 3 young brothers aged 8 through 11. Supposedly to mark one of the boys' birthdays. What followed was a less happy birthday and a more high alert. The youngsters soon became ill and lethargic, with one nephew confiding to his aunt that he couldn't feel his body, prompting a swift trip to the hospital for treatment of cannabis poisoning. The boy's guardian had since filed a lawsuit against Ms. Boyd, the school, and the district, alleging negligent hiring and supervision, and even battery for inducing a controlled substance onto a campus there and causing physical, mental, and emotional harm. You know, everybody's going to appear in court on June 15th. Now, one can only imagine the principal's expression upon learning that the treats were not exactly apple for the teacher approved. Lesson learned the hard way when it comes to some classroom stacks. Stick to the basics, unless your goal is to turn recess into a referendum on poor judgment. Anyway, this situation is a cautionary tale that some birthday surprises are best left in the candy aisle. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, the Constitution matters.